It is 5 o'clock, and this is the work session of the School Board of Trustees. The first thing we are discussing tonight, and this should be fairly informal, is on the subject of minutes, do we want to record every single vote, even the interim procedural type things in the minutes, or would we prefer to limit ourselves to the, what did you call them? You had an adjective for those votes.
Non-dispositive.
Non-dispositive votes versus dispositive votes, right?
Essentially.
Yeah. And so I think the best way to structure our conversation is just to talk the way we have in the past. So would anyone like to begin that conversation? Okay, I will. So it is my preference, I suppose, to make the minutes as streamlined and clear as possible for our readers. I think that the minutia of what we do isn't necessarily interesting to anyone but us, and that having all of the non-dispositive votes would complicate the minutes unnecessarily. However, that does open up room for disagreement as to what counts as dispositive and what doesn't. So I honestly could go either way. I think George's template is sensible. Would you like to maybe talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so if you've all seen the proposed template, I structured it in that way because I noticed in the last several minutes we had, it was a little bit confusing to know what was the final motion and what wasn't, and what changed a final motion. So a lot of the motions that lead up to an actual final vote, which leads to a decision, may or may not change the wording of what we vote on. It may change the order of business in which we did things. And so I thought it would be better to clearly indicate what the final, this is the action of the school board vote was, and then the votes leading up to that. And as a compromise, in order to save space, I put a note on the template to say that all motions presented on the page are assumed to be successfully forwarded unless, not forwarded, seconded, unless otherwise noted.
Does anyone else?
I think that in the course of a meeting, and I think it's been improving, definitely, and thanks to Amy and George for your leadership on that. I think the new minute template, or the new minutes template is excellent, better than it's ever been. My concern with listing every single vote is, it's just confusing, honestly, to the reader, and it's information that's not necessary to be included in it, particularly because all of our meetings are live streamed and everything is time stamped. So if somebody really wanted to see how the conversation went, they could do that. We have spent way too much time talking about minutes, in my opinion, in our meetings, and we need to stop doing that. And so that's why I'm not inclined to add more. And my other comment, that's not necessary, and I get we have two differing legal opinions, right? The law does allow for interpretation, and we have two attorneys who are both knowledgeable and excellent, who have given differing opinions on it, and ultimately it's up to us to make a decision about that. But it particularly given the history of kind of some division, I'm not sure that listing all of the minutia is helpful to what really should be the end result of a board of trustees, which is whatever is the majority vote on any topic is the decision that the entire board gets behind. So for me, that's really where the focus is how do we best serve our community? And that means a unified voice on decisions, whether we voted for it or against it.
That was something I really struggled with when I first got on the board. And one of the very first questions I asked Alan Karpick was about that in particular. And the analogy I was given either by him or by you, Rachel, I can't remember which, was that it was similar to parenting, and that you don't want to have one parent who says, yes, you can go to the party, and the other who says no, and that makes the children feel less secure. And similarly with a board, if certain board members are expressing one opinion and other board members are expressing another that may differ from the majority, then it creates confusion and a lack of security for the people who work for us and for the public and everyone else, which I thought was an interesting way of looking at it and not something I had considered. So does anyone else have anything? Yue.
So first of all, I think I like the current template. I think it's clear, helpful, and it has a very nice structure to follow, and it will record everything basically we will cover, right? And at the same time highlight the final vote. I think it's a good one. And so if we remove actually at last meeting, I raised this question. I asked whether we will only record the final or we will also record the intermediate ones. And at that time, actually, I was worried about too much work for Roberta and George, and to add those intermediate ones. But later, people have more discussion and email and consulted the legal counsel, all those things. And after the second thought, I thought, if we have a streamlined way to record that might be helpful. Because first, we don't need to decide whether a certain vote is worth recording. And so basically, whatever there's a vote, we record it, right? And sometimes some of those informations can be critical. For example, I remember at one of the meetings, and George mentioned that we needed to clarify the lighting on the contract. Add something, amendment, right? The
To amend it so that if it were warranted.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So for that tennis court, I feel that's quite critical. And so if we record everything, then we won't miss anything important. I feel it cannot make it easier. Otherwise, we have to make a decision whether this is worth recording or not. And but still, I hope this additional work won't add too much burden to Roberta and George. In that case, I will propose maybe whenever we make that vote, and Amy, when you preset the meeting, you say something specific to make it
To note
clear. Yeah, so then when they do the minutes and they can search the transcripts, like download it from the Google, the YouTube or whatever, just make it easier to follow. And plus, right now we decided to record the timestamp. So I think with those, the cue, the verbal cue, and the timestamp, we are kind of pretty much all set at the same time. Hopefully, we don't add too much work to them. Okay. Yeah, I really like this template. I think it can solve the problem.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. Daisha?
So I agree with George that this can get confusing with all the different amendments, and I appreciate his effort in setting up a template so that it can make it simpler. And I appreciate Yue's comments about how how to make things simpler for Roberta and George. I think for me that I'm still not understanding is the discussion even that we record these votes. I mean, the Indiana code says that we're required to keep a record of all votes taken by individual members if there's a roll call. So it's like, how is this a debate or a discussion? And there were, I think Rachel's the one that referenced that we did ask 2 different legal counsels on the topic. And to me, both legal counsels supported the all votes. The first response was that it presented low risk. And it's like, why are we saying that we want to take any risk? All we have to do is put all votes in and we now have 0 risk. So to me, that comment was, yeah, the risk isn't high, but if anyone comes back, it's going to cost our school district extra money. It's going to be very embarrassing that a board is not willing to follow Indiana code and has to get called out. So that was the, one recommendation was it is low risk, but carries risk. And then the other recommendation was that the statute clearly says all votes have to be recorded. And I like the comment that this legal counsel said. They said the board speaks only through its minutes. So it's important to record all minutes it takes and to summarize all discussion it has. The minutes are the only way to know what the board decided and discussed for current and future time. So I love that we have YouTube. I love that we're doing timestamps. All those things is a great resource for our community that wants to dive in. If they want to hear a whole thing, we're making it easier for them. But there's very clear requirements of what's required in the minutes. And I feel like that we've slowly discussed each of those points. And now, hopefully tonight, we will come to terms with the last point on the votes. But I think this is very important that we're, number one, in compliant, and number two, that we're sharing with our community what decisions are being made. It's one thing to say we're having a discussion about it. It's another to take an official vote. And the community should be well informed of who votes for what. We don't need to pretend that we all believe the same and only record votes that we're unified in or try to share something that's inaccurate. We are all elected by the community and they can know who is voting for what. And so that their votes can be informed in the future, as well as they can be well informed about why we got to the final vote that we got to.
Okay, thanks. Since David hasn't spoken yet, let's go with him.
I am somewhere in the middle. I don't agree that both of the sets of lawyers came to the same conclusion. I do think that our lawyers said that you don't have to record every vote, and I think that it's important to recognize that. No, sorry. So I don't agree that both lawyers said actually yours needs to be turned off. I'm getting echo. Sorry. I don't believe both lawyers said the same thing. I think ours said that it's fine not to record them. Whereas the ISBA has a different perspective on it. And I had a conversation with her about that where I don't necessarily think that we see eye to eye on those. And I know that Robert's Rules of Order is not Indiana law, but it is what the process of a meeting is based off of. In Robert's Rules of Order, I have the brief version. This is one that I bought it before Mr. Collier gave some to the board, but one of the things that it talks about is that only main motions are recorded. In fact, if you have a motion that somebody puts on the floor and it's seconded, and let's say you make 5 or 6 amendments to that motion, page 150, if you make like 5 or 6 amendments to that motion, and then the person withdraws their motion, you actually don't even record that as into the minutes, according to Robert's Rules of Order. In part because it's not an action of the board. The action of the board is only that final step. All of those intermediate steps are really just us it's a formal process to maintain order for us to come to that final decision of what we are actually going to take an action on. Mm-hmm. And to me, recording or formally writing down every single amendment and vote within that process I think makes the minutes much less clear, because what we are trying to communicate to the community is what decisions and actions have been made. And we could have a much more informal process of us going through and revising some wording of the minutes. I don't believe that Indiana law actually says that we have to go through amendments and things like that before we get to our final motion. We've chosen to adopt and use that process because it creates much more of an order for us. But it's like, what did I make for lunch? I wasn't a peanut butter sandwich, but we'll use that as an example of we each may have different perspectives on how to do each of those steps, but in the end, it's peanut butter sandwich. And so that to me is the easiest and most streamlined approach to dealing with the minutes. And one additional thing, given that two lawyers have differing opinions, I think it's best practice for us to primarily go with the ones who we are paying to be our lawyers, because if we ask them for opinions and then we go different directions on different things sometimes, I think that opens us up to more liability of why aren't we listening to the lawyers who would be the ones who would defend us and work with us in any type of case that were to come up.
Thank
So
you.
that's my thought.
Rachel.
I'd like to address the issue of the legal opinion. I think for me, the primary difference is that the request for response from our corporation attorney, the one that the board has voted to retain, that came to all of us in their own words. Dacia's provided a paraphrased version, presumably, of whatever she spoke with the ISBA attorney about. I also had it like David at the regional meeting, had the opportunity to speak with that attorney to try and understand their interpretation a little bit more fully. And I did not bring that up when I commented because it didn't feel appropriate, because I spoke to her alone, and that wouldn't be communication from the board. However, the one thing that I want to make everyone aware of is that when I spoke with her, she was not, because she's not as familiar with our school corporation specifically, she was not aware that we provide a fully time-stamped set of minutes. And so when she was making her response, presumably, I haven't seen her response to Dacia because that's not been shared, but based on what Dacia summarized it to be, that was not something that she was aware of. And she did think and agree when we had our conversations that those two things, a recording of every vote and a timestamp of the minutes, was redundant information. But again, that's my paraphrasing what she said to me, so take that for what it's worth. But the other thing that I do think it is important to clarify here is I am not in any way proposing that we all vote the same. I am completely fine with everybody, and in fact expect that everybody on this board will have different opinions. Really, that's not the intent. The intent is once the decision is made, that decision is the work of the whole board, even if we're not in the majority. And that's the distinction. We can argue all day long up until we get to the point that that vote is made. And then we must respect the vote, the majority vote of the other members on the board, respect their opinions, and understand that we were not in the majority in that time. And finally, David, thank you for the note on consistency. That came up to me and from both attorneys, that you must be consistent in how you do it. And I agree, it would seem to be a good idea to go to the attorney that knows us a little better.
Okay, George.
On the note about attorneys, one thing to keep in mind is who each of them represents. So our attorney represents us and is legally bound under the state ethics code for attorneys to represent us. The ISBA's lawyer represents the ISBA. Now, they do give off legal advice that is pertinent to all of the ISBA members, but she does not represent any one school corporation in any capacity. So the ISBA's lawyers have an interest in serving us, but they also have an interest in serving themselves and maintaining good relationships with the state legislature, because they are the school board's collective lobbying arm, so to speak. So it's two very different considerations there.
Okay, thanks. Stacia, go ahead.
So just to clarify, because David, if I understood when you shared that our lawyer had said that it's fine not to record it, but my question is, did she also say at that same time there's a low risk if we don't?
Yes, we all received the same email that effectively said that we don't need to provide individual votes. And because my interpretation added on to that is that those individual votes in the amendments are not actions by the board. And that's what has to be recorded.
So just to follow up, I think that's why I'm viewing that our lawyer is saying that votes are needed, because if they were not needed, there'd be no risk. The other thing is David also brought up, is Robert's rules, which our lawyer did reference. Robert's rules are a guideline. I appreciate that we use them for the procedures, but once again, they're a guideline where Indiana code does trump it. So Robert's rules says very clearly that we don't need to share any information about what happens in the minutes. It says it's actually improper to summarize matters. And so I know this has caused a lot of issues with our minutes, because a lot of board members want to follow Robert's rules and limit the information that we share with the public. But to me, the arguments that I keep going back to is what Indiana code says. And so that's why I still am surprised at the pushback, when all we do is include all votes. We now follow Indiana code. We have zero risk. The other point is the recommendation from Julie Slavins, just to clarify that I did take that email, and as I shared with the whole board when I forwarded it, just so you'd be well prepared ahead of this meeting, I said I was not summarizing her words. It was a direct quote. So it wasn't my guess of what she said, but what exactly she said.
Okay. Who's next? Lawrence.
Regarding the meeting minutes, we have worked for a long time, so I really appreciate Roberta and also George and the previous secretary. So they work together. We make a lot of progress regarding the meeting minutes. Also, we have timestamps, we have summary of issues, and also I really appreciate George have a kind of template. So every time we use just to fill in the necessary information, so template makes things much easier and also standardized the whole process. So I really appreciate that. And regarding whether or not we should document all the votes, I think the first things I would say, the Indiana open door law does require we record all the votes. So basically, I think it's Indiana Code 514 1.54 item B and item 4, reading a record of all votes taken by individual members if there's a roll call. So I think for us, it's very, I totally agree with George and also David, some of my colleagues' concerns regarding this may confuse readers. And but in my opinion, the simplest and the easiest way is just to follow the Indiana open door law. So that's make life much easier for everybody. So we don't need, every time we don't need to talk or discuss whether or not this is a non-disposable vote, what kind of vote it is. It's just to document whatever we vote. And vote in terms of board actions is a kind of official board actions, no matter it's procedure or it's regarding the business, our business. So that should be document. And another thing is a reliable meeting minutes is also a way for us, valuable opportunities for us, school board, as a collective also leadership team. So that's perfect opportunities for us to demonstrate we are accountable, we are transparent, and we follow the open door laws. If we just document some of the vote, basically we didn't follow the open door laws. And it's very reasonable for people to ask if you guys, this meeting minutes is small issues. If you don't follow the Indiana open door laws in these small issues, I totally agree. We should concentrate to spend more time on some big issues. But the question is, if you don't follow the laws in these small issues, and when you handle some big issues, can you follow the Indiana laws? So that will be a very valid, legitimate question for our whole school board. So not each individual member, also the leadership team. So in my opinion, given those considerations, I just think follow the laws, document all vote. That may be the best and the easiest way for us to conduct our business in accountable, professional, also transparent ways. Thank you.
Thanks. Let's be careful not to accidentally vote in a work session by saying specifically how we're going to vote. I also think that we should acknowledge that the code and the open door law and so on that we're referencing was probably not written with live streaming and YouTube timestamps in mind. In the late 18th century, when a lot of these rules were derived, it was maybe a little different. Yes. Oh. Was it 2016?
You're still
Well,
right.
okay.
2016 was a long time ago.
Good to know. All right, go ahead, David.
I want to get back to this idea. First off, I don't think any of us are trying to hide. Everything is live streamed. None of us are trying to hide anything. I think what we're trying to do is come up with a version of the minutes that are easily understandable by the community. When you put in every single amendment in there, it can in some ways hide what is actually the final motion. Yes, it's down there after 3, 4, 5 amendments sometimes, but it creates a document that makes it more difficult for people to actually see what are the decisions, the actual votes of the board. And I don't think that not recording the individual amendments is violating Indiana open door policy, because functionally, those votes on amendments are not decisions by the board. They're the means of which we're going through the process of getting to what we're going to vote on as our action. If we never end up voting on that final motion, whether it's yay or nay on it, the board functionally has not taken an action. We may need to summarize to some degree that there was discussion about this topic, but nothing ever happened. But I think the purpose of the minutes is to convey those final decisions accurately to everybody. And the more that's in there that doesn't, or that distracts from those final motions, I think makes it more convoluted and challenging for people to clearly see and understand.
Something just occurred to me after I mentioned the technology, and that is that the open door law, if I'm not mistaken, says roll call votes have to be recorded. Is that correct? Yeah. And so it's functionally the buttons and the screens that create a situation where our votes are roll call votes. So perhaps if we used verbal A's and nays or I's and nays to do the votes in between and only used the buttons for the final action, that might satisfy both requirements. That's just a thought. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Yue.
Actually, I think using the machine to record the voting is very convenient and clear. It's better than the verbal one. And so actually I have a question for Brandon Nasher. Does the system record, have a log for all the votes? This,
Probably.
okay.
I can't answer like how long it goes back.
I mean, for example, today after the meeting at that recording. I wonder, because this is like a machine is designed for voting. So I wonder whether there's a log in the
Perhaps.
system somehow.
And it does show on the screen on the YouTube video, correct? The vote.
Yeah, on the
does, yeah.
video for sure. But I wonder, back in the computer log, whether it is recorded. So for me, I always feel the sorrow, the better. And people can have the choice, especially with the form that George created. I feel it differentiated the intermediate ones and the final ones. And for those who only care about the final ones, they can just go there. Probably you can even bold that final ones to make it more outstanding. So to solve the problem of like a confusing problem that Dave mentioned, that people feel, oh, I don't want to know those intermediate ones. I want to go to the final one. They can just look at the bolded ones. Use the format, to make it easier. Earlier, I sort of prefer the final ones only to reduce the burden for Roberta and George, but if we can make that part easier by either doing some verbal cue to make the votes stand out or using the log, if there's a way to do it, I think.
It won't have any kind of reference to what you're voting on is the problem.
That's true.
You would have a vote count, but you wouldn't have a reference as to what was being voted on in the law.
Let's say today
just create more
we had 20 votes and it's recorded, but we don't know which is corresponding to what.
Exactly.
Okay.
It would just create more.
Yeah.
Okay. So that can not be used, but then we can rely on the verbal cue. You get, okay, here we are voting for blah, blah, blah. You make it very clear. And so on the recording, it's there. Then we can search for that verb if we want to replay. And but anyway.
Thank you.
Just one more clarification on the template. When it says for the intermediate ones, it says past 6 versus 1. And in that case, do we list who are the 6, who is the 1? Or we only give a summary?
George, were you planning
the
on
numbers.
listing the names of who voted for what if there's a split vote on your template, or were you only going to list the number?
Yeah.
Don't forget your microphone. Sorry.
The example I have has the names in there because I thought that was something that we had decided on before.
Yeah, it's just I feel if we record those intermediate ones, I will prefer we list the people who voted one way or the other. And just for clarity, again, for those who don't want to read it, they can just skip it. And so they have the choice.
I get your desire for that. I feel like recording the names for those intermediate votes would defeat the point of trying to make things concise. So that, I think what I have here is a kind of a compromise where we will record the intermediate or non-dispositive votes, but we won't put all of the names there because then that section itself, particularly on a complicated piece of business, will be a page long just by itself, which would defeat the point of shortening everything.
And particularly I'm remembering last year when I was, when we were trying to get through the policies and, people had different, let's add this word or take out that word or add this sentence and take out that sentence and have that sentence, but change this word to that word. I agree with George that we could get bogged down in the details to the point where it's not useful to people. So I don't know that we have solved anything, but it kind of feels like everybody has had a moment to say what's on their mind with regard to the meeting minutes. And this appears between item 10 and item 11 because there's no exhibit on this issue. So it's my intention to introduce it, and if people would like to say a brief word about their opinion, that would be great, but I don't think we need to recapitulate this whole discussion. Does anybody object to moving on? Okay. The other thing I would add before we do is that I attended the ISBA dinner with many of you and the IASBO dinner in honor of Michelle and her colleagues, and several people came up to me and indicated that we were a subject of ridicule because this ongoing conversation is continuing. And that does not feel good to me as a leader. We're being called out by our peer organizations for having spent an inordinate amount of time on the structure of the minutes. So I really hope that this can be, if not the last, one of the very last conversations we have on the topic, and that we can move on to more important things, such as the policies. There was a request to have a policy discussion as part of this meeting. I'm not sure how to structure that in light of the fact that we're going to be talking about them in 45 minutes or so, but does anyone have anything in general to say? Rachel, go ahead.
So the policy, the ad hoc policy committee, that is Lawrence and David and I met, and we did have an initial conversation about the order of operations before we got into the content of the policies. And so everyone on the board already has those notes, but I would be happy to recap them. That might be a fit for right now in discussion. Okay.
Sorry, can you share, I've looked for those notes.
I've sent multiple emails. There's links in multiple emails, Stacia.
You just said they were in box. And I've gone
No,
through
they're
all
a shared Google document.
Okay.
So, just so people who cannot see our screens understand the process that's happened here, to have a shared document is a little bit simpler in our Google. And so this document was started and shared with all board members on October 30th of 2024. It was amended with purple text on November 19th of 2024. It was shared with our new members, George and David, following their election. And we met most recently on April 27th, and that text appears in the document as orange. So it's color-coded to make it a little bit easier for everybody to navigate. Because some of these policies have been released, or all of these policies have been released to us, one after the other, this seemed the simplest way to track it so that all board members could understand the process that we'd gone through. Of course, I always close my emails. If you have any questions or difficulties, please reach out. I'm happy to help. And I want to commend Lawrence for reaching out when he was struggling to find something in there. So if we receive, I would say from any board member, a comment or a question about something, and we don't understand where it is or what it is, that we could always ask that question. But if we go through the process that we started out discussing, and I will say there was a lot of discussion about this, and there was some differing opinion on it. And so that's why I think it's a good idea to recap it so everybody kind of knows where we are. And but you can see that in orange. The first thing that we discussed was, though we had several policies that already had been submitted for first reading and were technically available for second reading, we felt because of the elapsed time and because that we had two new members, that it made sense to draw all policies back to a first reading status. And so we have done that this time, and we've eliminated prior first readings. So we can all start over in the same place. And then in our order of operations, we had conversation along the lines of, one, that the board president would refer draft policies to the policy committee. And so that's something that we've picked up fairly recently, that the board president will in fact direct what content we consider, because we're doing a full overhaul. And that helps us with tracking and also priority setting from our chair and our superintendent. Following that referral to the policy committee, the legal and central office will review those selected policies and give us feedback. Often that is very subject sensitive. So if it were, for example, a health and wellness related policy, we would expect Dr. Greiner typically will go to our nursing or our corporation physicians for feedback on it. We've also seen that play out with the athletic department on athletic related policies and so forth. But that's to get the best people who are closest to the work of the schools involved in the engagement of the policies. The third step is, after that feedback is given, the policy committee will review the policy language So we're adding red line and green line text for additions. There's no text that's eliminated. In other words, every member of the board is able to see what language was presented, as well as our recommendations for any red line or green add additional text. Primarily in those meetings, we are comparing the proposed policy to existing policy. And we are, the three of us, observing that the policy is presented and trying to understand or identify any information that the board members may need for a vote. So we found a couple of areas, just as an example, there was some kind of confusion about what policies linked together. And so we were able to go back to legal and say, hey, we think these are connected. Could we also have that? So it's more that type of questioning, or we know this has been a situation in our school corporation particularly that's unique to us. Could we get some more information about that? So that's the nature of that. Then the fourth step of that would be that the policy committee chair presents the work of the policy committee as it appears in these notes to the full board at a work session or regular meeting as scheduled. That is what is happening right now. And then finally, the board discusses in that once that's been presented, and the public has the opportunity for review at that point in time. So the draft policies, as we know, are in our board packet and publicly available. And any additional modifications between the first reading and the second reading, they are to be considered over the time period between meetings. So as we have seen many times, our community will give us feedback if they have a particular issue or question with a policy. Board members obviously also give that feedback. So that gives us a time to kind of accumulate those. I want to be clear in describing that. That does not mean that if a member of the community or a board member comes forward and says, I don't like that, or I would rather see this, that means that we would just change the draft policy. What that will do is guide our second vote conversation. And so what we discussed is really item number 6, is that we would at our next subsequent meeting present a clean, and that is specifically air quotes, policy presented for a vote, but it will be structured such that any parts of the policy that have differing opinions on the board, those will be set up as single items for vote before we get to a final vote on the policy. So that seemed like a good way to expedite the handling of differing opinions, is to allow different board members to give their opinion, not as a decision, but as an input for discussion and vote. And then finally, after all of those kind of minor votes, the single item votes are taken and final, we would go to a final vote being on the overall policy. And then in addition, there was conversation about making a completely separate vote for which policies will be eliminated or replaced of our current policy, provided the new policy is passed. So as we talked through that process, we felt that was a very clean way to get through these in some organized fashion, that provided members are following along in the shared document and reading the policies in advance of the meeting, that we would be able to get through that a little bit more efficiently. So I would just open this process up for conversation and input if anybody feels differently about what the policy committee found would work.
That sounds great. Now that everyone's had an explanation, does anyone have, David?
Yeah.
Please.
I just want to add one thing that I was just thinking about to make the revision process or the discussion process in the second reading a lot easier, is if we're able to put up in a document what it is that we're talking about, so that we can make the individual, if there are edits that are made, or we can have the wording up on the screen so that we can then go through one piece at a time. That way we all are looking at the same exact thing and can smooth that process.
It's a great minds think alike moment, because it was just about a half an hour ago, or about, I guess we're in the meeting, about an hour ago, that Amy and I had that same conversation, that it would make sense to put the policy up on the screen when we go to that reading. So yeah, exactly. It's a great idea.
I like it. Thank you, Al, for your work on putting this together. Lawrence, did you have something to?
Do we have time?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to have something to share. I really appreciate the meetings. We have Rachel, David work together. It's really very fruitful meetings, and really appreciate Rachel document everything. I think she's really good at the documentations, so I appreciate that. And regarding this procedure, I think the only things I think maybe we need another. But this current procedure is pretty good. I like it. But the only thing is, if there's make that better, maybe we have another another readings. Basically, we have a third reading. After second reading is for any changes. We just hear kind of item 6, the step 6 item A. I think this will be kind of whatever amendment proposals. We have different opinions. We can bring the board vote, and whatever approved or reject, and then we will have final overall policies, clean policies, and we post that online for whatever public comments, whatever, and then the next month we will have clear policy. We just go ahead and vote. So that's my suggestion, but I'm not strong willing on that. If you guys think this kind of procedure, 2 reading is good, I'm okay. Another things regarding the step 4, saying the final the work of policy committee as is appear in those notes to the full board at working session or regular meeting. So personally, I think it will be better off we just work on the work sessions, and then for the regular work, the regular meetings, we just vote for the amendment or vote for the policies, and whatever our working on the policies, that will be kind of working sessions. So that's and another thing, the third thing, I'm just wondering, maybe we need to decide. We want to adopt some policy, some policies, several policies, one policy, several policies, and then we will repeal the existing Neola policies batch by batch, or we just, what's the best way? We don't want to have 2 different policies in the same time. So maybe we need to working on that, the details, how to, adopt the policy and also repeal the Neola things. So that's other than that. But I really appreciate David and Rachel. I think we work very well. So I really appreciate that. So
Great. David, did you want to address some? No, Rachel, you did.
So the last piece that Lawrence mentioned, that is item C. That
Okay.
is, it might have rolled down on your page, but that's item 6C, where it says there will be a separate vote for which policies will be eliminated or replaced, provided the new policy is passed. That was a great idea that Lawrence had, that there'd been some confusion over that in the past. And so that is indeed what we added on there.
Great. Daisha, you had something real quick so we can take a break before the meeting. please.
Yes, so David just shared the document with me, so I skimmed it really fast, so if I missed it, let me know. But I did have a couple quick questions. The first one is, we have passed new policies that we didn't eliminate or replace or vote on that. So when will that take place? Right now, we do have some conflicting policies in place. So I appreciate that going forward, it seems like we have a clear plan. What's the plan for the past ones that we have passed but have not rescinded? Those is my first question.
David?
So we had a discussion about that. It sounded like there was confusion as to whether or not the prior process did eliminate those, because I think my interpretation was that the passing of those new policies came with the elimination of the other ones. However, everything is mapped out in the documents that we've received of what ones overlap, and so I think that can cleanly be done of just one additional motion to eliminate these policies as per the prior passage of these others, just to make it as clean as possible.
Okay.
So what about the past ones? Because in the past, there was one time that we voted to approve the school wellness policy. We actually passed it, and then we rescinded the old one. But there was no other policies that we followed those steps. So my curiosity
For
is
those
just
ones, yeah,
how those are going to be handled.
yeah, for those ones, we can just identify which ones didn't have that formal motion,
Okay.
and we can just
And
go
do
through
it.
that. Yeah.
Perfect. And then my next question is, the crossover document that CCHA provided to us does not include all of Neola's policies. We have quite a few policies that are kind of in limbo, and some actually do connect to policies they're wanting us to redo, others do not. And so my question is, does CCHA, we paid them a significant amount of money, are they prepping that, or how are we getting this crossover document? Because actually, in their first document they gave us and their second one, they didn't even match with what they themselves had provided. They actually, on the first one said, this matches with this, and their second one, they changed their mind. And so how do we get an accurate document so we know what we're looking at?
Go ahead.
So just to kind of loop our new members in, we had Amy Matthews visit with us when Jesse was on maternity leave. And as Amy described, the crosswalk document was actually out of their scope of proposal. They did that to try and help satisfy additional information requests by the board. They were very clear that it was not going to be a 100% tight document, that they were creating that as a bit of an assist, but definitely not an answer. And as they described at that time, once all of the new policies were in place, there would be a cleanup wave that went through at the end that would make sure that nothing had been missed. But the point of going with the CCHA policy model is that it's not going to look the same as Neola, but it is going to comprehensively address the policy needs of the school corporation in alignment with school law. So it is going to be a little bit sloppy, which is part of why, until we can get through it, which is part of why we've been trying to get through it in a way that would satisfy all members, and why we're very focused on doing that right now. But the bottom line is not going to be perfectly clean until we can get through the policy.
Daisha, if you'd like to go through the old policies, I'd love to have a list. That would be terrific. Thank you. That'd be really helpful.
So I do have a question. What did we pay $16,000 for? Because they handed us kind of their blank slate that they handle every school district, but at least when it came up, it was they're going to tailor it, they're going to work with us, they're going to help with all of ours. So help me understand, what did the $16,000, what services are they providing besides giving us just a generic policy and then answering questions with which they do as part of their services anyway?
Rachel?
So they provided us a comprehensive set of policies that are intended as a starting point for us to work through. They've provided, there's an intellectual capital to that knowledge and that recommendation from them. And then, yes, they serve as our resource. In addition to that, as laws change, they continue to give us updated feedback on those law changes and what we need to do, which is something we're going to come across tonight when we get into a couple of these policies where law has been changed. And so, this isn't like, we're not buying shoes at the shoe store. This is a comprehensive purchase of legal counsel for a tight policy set, and that is what we have paid for.
Okay. David?
From my limited experience of, this is now month 5, one of the other things that it seems like they're also doing is when we recommend modifications or any changes or work with the policies in any way, we send it back to them and they provide their feedback on any of those changes. So it's a continual process that we're going through. So I think some of that is also, I guess, not just the giving of the standard template, but it's also working with us as we make our changes.
Okay. Daisha, please, when you send your list, could you make sure you copy everybody?
Of course.
Thank you. And Lawrence?
Just a quick, so back to this policy, basically, the service we have is right now pretty much just the email support. So my understanding, this $16,000 for 100 policies, I think it's a little bit overpriced. I mean, this policy,
Price compared to what?
the standard service, $50 per policy, readily available on the market. So I think this is a little bit overpriced. And back to the continuous support, they will charge our hourly rate for the continuous service. So
I have a question. Rachel, when you and I were on the policy committee, when I first was on the board, please come in. Did you interfaced with Neola? Because I never did. Did they answer direct questions and tailor their product to us, or was that, I don't remember.
No, well, I mean, yes and no. We never saw them. They were never present in the room with us. They did not attend any of our meetings that I'm aware of. But yes, we would definitely send them a policy and say, we've got a question about this or that. It was very similar to the setup with CCHA in terms of feedback. It really, that part of it, that back and forth part of it is extremely similar to what we had with our previous provider.
Okay. David, real quick, because we need to take a quick break before our next meeting.
I think it's
Please
also
come in, yeah.
important for us to be remembering that we need to focus on where we are now with things. We have policies that we need to revise. We're in this process. We can't go back and be questioning whether or not this is worth the price right now, because we're here, we're doing this, and we need to get through this. And it's not like we're gonna stop working with them and find somebody else and pay them a different amount of money. And we're here and we need to work through this.
Okay, I'd really like to take a quick break. We have 4 minutes before the next meeting starts, so let's go ahead and do that. Thanks, everyone. Sorry. I know everybody's got a lot to say. Okay, welcome to the regular meeting of the School Board of Trustees. Our first item is Mrs. Fitzsimmons, who's going to talk to us about the food service highlights, which good stuff.
Thank you. So I am Courtney Fitzsimmons, the food service director and dietitian for West Lafayette Schools. I'm excited to share some updates. There'll be time at the end for some questions, so hold your questions till the end if you have any. All right, so the pictures you're seeing, that is our fresh station. It is a customizable bar where you can build your own sub or salad. We have the Smart Mouth Pizza, that is a fresh baked, whole grain, personalized pizza. And then those bottom two pictures are from the Fiesta Bar, which is a student favorite every Tuesday, where we offer a choice of soft tacos, nachos, or baked taco bowls. We also encourage students to take advantage of the multiple fruits and vegetables we offer with every meal. Okay, we've been part of K-12's leading Indiana co-op since 2018. CLIC continues to grow and now serves over 173,000 students, over 70 districts across Indiana. Co-ops help increase our purchasing power to ensure that we get the best possible prices. These are the list of vendors that won CLIC's bids for the 25-26 school year. They're all vendors we've used in the past and have been very happy with them. On Friday, May 2nd, we celebrated National School Lunch Hero Day. The staff and students loved the superhero banners that we hung in each kitchen. This is our wonderful elementary school team. And then this is the picture of our amazing intermediate superheroes. Then finally, we have our fantastic crew at the junior senior high school. I cannot say enough good things about our food service team. It's not a glamorous job, but they take pride in working hard and ensuring every student has access to nutritious meals in a welcoming environment. One common measure of productivity that's frequently used in school food service is meals per labor hour. You find that by dividing the number of total meal equivalents per day by the total number of paid labor hours. As you can see, we've been working on increasing our meals per labor hour from 12 to 13 meals per labor hour to 14.5 meals per labor hour across the board. And our final goal is about 15 meals per labor hour. So we're almost there. Okay, as we have transitioned away from COVID relief, we have run into some financial challenges within the department. In 2023 to 2024, we had a loss of about $80,000 for the year, and this was due to a significant decrease in the additional 37 cents of the USDA paid reimbursement. And then this year, we lost about $70,000 of supply chain assistance funds, which were discontinued, making about a loss for $150,000 for this school year. We don't know what the reimbursement rates will be for next year. However, we have lost about 12% in our entitlement dollars, which means we'll no longer be able to participate in DoD Fresh or in brown box commodities. You can see our current prices up here. We get most of our our funding from two sources: federal reimbursement, which is in green, and student prices in blue. The amount we get for free and reduced is significantly more than what we receive for paid students, bringing in almost $1 less per student at the elementary and intermediate and 75 cents less at the junior senior high school. This is a notable amount since about 77% of our students are paid. $3 and $3.25 have been our student paid lunch prices since 2022. Okay, next I want to discuss the local partnerships we've had this school year. This is our second year working with Sushi Boss on Purdue's campus, and this year we added Everbowl acai bowls as an a la carte option. One of my favorite things to offer is the iced coffee and the iced chai We get the coffee from Java House, and we sell the chai from a small local Indiana business. Piazza Produce is our fresh fruits and vegetable vendor. They're committed to using local produce as often as possible. Milk is another major fresh local product in the schools, and largely coming from family-owned Indiana dairy farms. Finally, a couple weeks ago, we partnered with 2 local Domino's stores to provide school-compliant pizza at the elementary and the intermediate school, and they really seemed to enjoy that. A few accomplishments I'd like to celebrate are that we passed our USDA administrative review this year of the school nutrition programs. We've done some taste testing with the students. They always seem to enjoy that when we do that. And we received a grant from the National Dairy Association to purchase a breakfast cart that we have located in the Commons every morning to help increase breakfast participation at the junior, senior high school. All right, any questions? Yeah.
Thank you for what you do. I really appreciate it. And I always feel good on a day when my child does not pack lunch, that he's going to get something good. Also, the animation of Mary Alice is amazing, and I think you should keep it up permanently.
I might have to fight her on that, but thank you.
Anybody else? George?
Yeah, and that's a little off topic, but what tool did you all use to generate those pictures?
No, I actually did a whole presentation on this. It's called Playground. It's AI, but you have to use an iPhone 15 or higher to get the Playground. Yeah.
They're very cute.
It's very fun though.
All righty. Well, thank
may
you
I
very much.
ask?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I agree, those cartoons were so cute. And I have a question. So the high school right now have a lot of choices, but the younger kids have much fewer. The reason is they have the time limit, or
Time limit is one of those biggest factors. They have longer at the junior, senior high school. And it's easier for them to make more choices when they're getting through the line at the elementary and intermediate. They need to go through a little bit quicker.
okay. Thank you.
My 8th grader is choosing pizza every single day, so I'm
I'm
glad
not
it's healthy.
surprised.
May I ask one more?
Sure.
Okay, another thing is I noticed that you sent the feedback survey to the community, and I really appreciate that. I wonder, in general, how is the response rate, and how do people feel about the food surveys in general?
Overall, pretty positive. We're still accepting feedback, so I don't have everything for you yet, but I hope to have that soon.
Great. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. It's nice to see you. All righty. Our next item of business is communication from the audience, and there were no takers. So we will move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything to move about the consent agenda? Thank you. Lawrence moves to approve. David seconds. And there is no discussion. And I wrote that down today, so I wouldn't do it again. So I will do the buttons. Oh, shoot. It's always hard the first time. There we go. Oh, no. Do you need to warm up your finger? Oh, dear. Okay, thank you. We'll call that 7-0. All right, the next item is the procedure for meeting minutes. And this is a conversation we had during the work session. And would anyone like to recap any of their comments on that? Aisha.
So if I understood correctly, the discussion we had entailed what votes are included in the minutes. And my view is that we should be including all votes. It's transparent and fully aligns with both public accountability and Indiana law. There's no risk if we include all votes. There's only risk if we do not. I believe we should commit to the most compliant and transparent path and not try to take any shortcuts.
Okay. Would anyone else like to summarize, Lawrence?
Not summarize.
Oh, go ahead.
My opinion.
Yep.
So I think this motion will vote whether or not to include our votes. But I think Indiana open door law is pretty plain English. They require all votes to be documented in the meeting minutes. So no matter what we vote, result either accepted, positive or negative, so it doesn't matter. We still need to follow the Indiana open door law. So I'm not sure if we have this as a motion or not. So that's my question. Thank you.
Okay. David?
Just to repeat a little bit of what I said earlier, I believe that only the final motion that's voted on needs to be reported, because the others aren't actions of the board. They're a process by which we get to the final action, and including them, especially as we're moving towards working through the policies that may have 5, 6, 7, 8 potential votes on revisions on each one, may actually reduce transparency as it becomes more convoluted, and everything is already shared fully on the live stream, as well as the final vote is really what makes what is the action of the board.
Okay. Rachel?
My comments were very aligned with what David just recapped. I would just say that while we did have differing feedback or interpretations of the law from 2 different attorneys, one thing that stuck out to me in the conversation was George's reminder to all of us that the attorney who we retain as our attorney represents us and would be perhaps the loudest voice in that, or not the loudest, but the one to rely upon the most. I do believe that it is important after a decision is made that our community clearly understand that decision, that we as a board stand united behind the decision, regardless of whether or not we were in the majority or minority of the vote, and convoluting our minutes with things that were not fruitful to the end decision are not really important to include, productive to include.
George? Oh, you're next. Hold on, George. Next.
I just want to remind everybody that the template you have can accommodate both sets of desires, but the way I have it designed right now, it includes everything everyone asked for, but it may not include it in the specific way that you want it. So keep that in mind.
Okay. Yui?
I'm not very sure about what George just said about the specific ways, but based on my understanding of the template, I think it's a great template to list both the intermediate votes and the final votes. And the only thing I would add is for the intermediate votes, we also record who voted yes, who voted no. I think that's help us to have the transparency, accountability, and because we represent the community, and so sometimes maybe we disagree, and we again represent different opinions, and so I'm not sure whether okay, I'm okay, and so that's why I feel it's helpful to record all the votes and who votes what, and just to make it easier, like what I said at the work session, I think by adding those verbal cues when you announce the votes, what we are voting on, and you can make it very clear so Roberta or George can either to make it easy for them to record what was being voted and who voted what, and so that way we have everything informative, thorough, and transparent, and we can be held accountable. And at the same time, because George separated the intermediate ones and the final ones, I think that gave people the option to read either both or only the final ones. So I feel that's a good compromise. And another thing, just a follow up and what you commented at the last at the end of the work meeting, you said somebody outside talked to you about our meeting minutes discussion. Actually, I think
You're okay.
whenever that happens, I feel
Is it cutting in and out?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
okay. So I feel probably some conversation happened within our community as well. But I would like to say, frankly, I appreciate that we have this conversation. It's really like today we have a work meeting to discuss this issue. I think that's very important because we value the diverse ideas, we value transparency, we value accountability. That's why we have this conversation, which I think is very important. There's nothing to be embarrassed about, and we should be proud that we make this all clear, and in the future we have the very clear and informative minutes for the community. And because very few people will have time to come to the meeting or watch the whole long video, having a very clear minutes is helpful for people. And so really, again, I don't think we should be embarrassed about it. I appreciate that you organize this work meeting for us to discuss it and have a conclusion. Thanks.
David?
So because I agree that the minutes should be as clear as possible, I'd like to make a motion that we make it the practice of our board that we only record in the minutes the final motion that was voted on. And we include a timestamp with the discussion of any amendment, or timestamp highlighting if there were amendments to the discussion leading up to that final motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Rachel seconds. Any further discussion prior to the vote?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just trying to clarify. So are we going to vote on whether or not to include the final all the vote, or we vote for the template George proposal? Because that one pretty much include everything, and that's good. Pretty much everybody requirement have been fulfilled by that template. I really appreciate that template. So what is the motion?
David, would you like to repeat your
The
motion?
motion is that we make it the practice of our board to only report in the minutes the final voted on motion, and to timestamp the period where there was discussion based off of any amendments.
You understand? Okay, great. Anything else? All right, I will start the vote. Go ahead.
Mine's still not letting me vote, but I vote yes.
Okay, so that's 3 yeses and 4 nos. All right, so that motion does not pass. Now, we can either leave this behind or we need another motion, and it's, sure,
Can I make a motion?
yep.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion. We adopt the template proposed by George regarding how to document the votes. I like that template. Thank you.
And,
I'll second that.
okay, and can I clarify that your motion includes every single vote, including the intermediary non-dispositive votes?
Yeah, that's my understanding of
Okay.
George's template, right? Can
That was the idea.
you? Yeah.
Okay,
So
great.
that's my understanding. That was just a
Super.
double check, make sure.
And
Okay.
David, you second? Okay, any other discussion? Super. Let me, oh, sorry, go ahead. You're off now.
Sorry. As I said multiple times, I like that template. The only thing I would add is to add the names for the intermediate votes as well. So I feel, yeah, just to make it clear, again, hold people accountable. And yeah, that's the only amendment I would like to add.
Okay, so you're moving to amend the motion to include the names of the individuals who have voted and how they voted on all the motions, correct?
Yeah, for any votes that recorded, add the name to it.
Okay, is there a second?
Thank you.
Dacia seconds, excellent. Any other further discussion? Rachel?
I just would really like us to stop talking about the minutes in our meeting. We've just spent an extraordinary amount of time on this. And so I think we just need to vote and move.
Okay. Anything else, Dave? No. Okay. I have to do,
We're voting on the amendment first.
we're voting on the amendment to include the names. Yes. Did that work for Rachel? It did. It did. Oh, lovely. Okay. So yes to include the names now. All right. So I'm going to stop that vote. Now we are voting on the previous motion, which was to adopt George's template and to include all the votes and all the names on all the votes. If I got that correct? Great. All right. And now I have to hit buttons. There. All right. There's one more. Okay. Who's missing? There we go. Okay. Wonderful. That motion passes. So we will continue to use Georgia's template, which is excellent. Thank you for doing that. We will record all of the votes and we will include all of the names. Wonderful. We can move on, and hopefully that will be the last discussion about the minutes until we get to the April minutes, which are the next item on the agenda. Daisha.
I make a motion to postpone the approval of the minutes so that we can include all the votes and in the format that we just approved.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to say approve the minutes, postpone it until the June meeting. Approve the minutes
you.
so they can be revised.
Okay. Is there a second to postpone the minutes? Lawrence. Okay. Any discussion? No? Hearing none. We will begin the vote. Okay. Correct, till June. Okay, 6 and 1 more, 7. Great. All right, then we have postponed that item. The next item on the agenda is to hit buttons. The next item on the agenda is the memo between the West Lafayette Police Department SRO program and the school corporation. Dr. Greiner.
Thank you, Mrs. Austin. You have an updated MOU with West Lafayette Community School Corporation and the WLPD. We've worked collaboratively with the updates with the WLPD. Legal counsel's reviewed the updated MOU, and they are in agreement. There was a question from the board regarding, will there still be an SRO officer in every building? The answer is yes, there will be an SRO officer in every building. And we're also working with, and the WLPD desires to have a consistent person in each building. So it's my recommendation that the board vote to approve the MOU as provided for you.
Great. Rachel?
Make a motion that we approve the SRO MOU as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I would like second.
Lawrence, thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? Yue.
Yeah, I just like to appreciate their great work and especially the rapport they built between with the students. And I usually sometimes drop my daughter to Willis, and I always see the officer there kind of dancing on the hi-fi with kids and playing music, and it's really lovely. And I think that's a very healthy relationship our SROs building with the kids. And I really, really appreciate them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything to share? Lawrence? Did you?
Yeah, just quick clarify question. Maybe I was wrong. Just my understanding is last year we trying to apply a grant so we can have a dedicated SROs in each building. So correct me if I'm wrong. So but now we still kind of it's not dedicated SRO, but we trying to make a consistent people to serve for each building.
That is
That's my
correct.
understanding.
We have a matching school safety grant, which is used to ensure we have SROs in every building. And the WLPD is now working on another grant to submit, which could provide a dedicated individual consistently in every building. So right now we have coverage in every building most of the time, assuming that there's, yes, but it's not necessarily consistent in every building, that same person. So the difference would be if this grant is awarded to the WLPD, that there'd be a consistent person similar to what is at Willis, as Dr. Yen was alluding to.
The follow-up, do you have any timelines estimate of this grant? Maybe we'll get, when we'll get that.
I'm not aware of a timeline,
I thought it was
specific
this
timeline.
summer, but I don't know when it would be finalized. They
Yeah.
said they hope to have it finalized by the end of this summer for the next school year.
Yes, but I'm not certain of when the award would be. Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Great, hearing none, we will hit the button. There we go. Okay, everybody's buttons are working, super. And that motion carries. I hit the wrong one. Okay. A lot going on here. Next item is the food service bid recommendation, and Mrs. Cronk.
Yeah. As Ms. Fitzsimmons detailed earlier, the West Lafayette Food Service Department is a member of the K-12 Leading Indiana Cooperative, or CLIC, which performs the RFPs for food purchases for its members on an annual basis. CLIC is recommending the initial contract and renewals that are outlined in your board memo for the 25-26 school year. Please approve that recommendation as submitted.
Okay, I need a motion, please. George?
I'll move to accept it.
Okay, thank
I
you.
would like to second.
Moved by George, seconded by Lawrence. Is there any discussion? Nope. All righty. Hearing none, we shall go ahead and vote. Look how fast that was. Wow. All right, thank you. That motion passes. Next item is the meal price recommendation, and back to you, Michelle.
And once again, Ms. Fitzsimmons shared with you some reasons why we need to look at increasing the lunch meal price for 25-26, including the federal reimbursement rate decreasing for lunch this past year, the loss of COVID supply chain assistance funds, a loss in commodity entitlement dollars, and an increase in labor and food costs. I know that doesn't sound super positive right now. I apologize for that. Please approve the recommendation to increase lunch prices by 50 cents for the 25-26 school year. We are not recommending any change in breakfast prices at this time.
Okay, I need a motion, please. Moved by Rachel. What would you like to move?
I make a motion to approve the meal price recommendation.
Okay, and Lawrence
I would like
enthusiastically
second, yeah.
seconds. All right, any discussion on that? Yes, Rachel?
Mrs. Cronk, I understand that reimbursements from the federal government right now are somewhat fluid. If that support were to change, is there any situation in which you would bring this to us mid-year? If you know, how would you handle that if there's another significant drop, I guess is my question.
Ms. Fitzsimmons, would you like to maybe chime in on that one? There's just so many unknowns at this point that I can't say one way or another. So
That's what I guess I'm not asking my question very well. I recognize there are a lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
And so I just want to know at what point you would come back to us and say, hey, we're in more trouble. Like, what would that look like?
We are always in good
Yeah.
communication about what's happening, and if it got to that point, we really needed to come back.
we would bring information back to the board if we saw there were an issue mid-year, I think. I would like to think that they wouldn't change things mid-year on us, but I've been proven wrong before, so.
That's, yeah, thank you. I think I just was wanting to make sure that this wouldn't be a suffer in silence scenario or you would come to us really upside down at the end of the year.
If there was a change that large, we would definitely keep you informed, so.
Thank you, that's all.
Okay,
We'll certainly keep the communication going through Friday notes like we do too. So there'll be constant dialogue if there were any kind of risks.
okay.
May I just ask a clarification question? So I remember before I learned that kids have to have milk. It's by law, even if they don't want to drink it. Many kids prefer to drink water instead of milk, but they still have to have the milk, pay for it, throw it away.
We just have to offer it. They don't
Okay, but they will be charged for the as a whole package without or with or without milk, right? Okay. So I wonder, by any chance, for those who don't want to have milk constantly, don't have to pay for the milk or something like that. Yeah, because with the increase of the cost, then we have to increase the milk price, but some kids don't really consume the milk constantly, but they have to pay for it. I wonder whether there's a way to save money for some of the kids.
I'm guessing that you will suggest that that's the requirement, that it has to be a part of the plan. They don't have to take it, but it has to be a part of the meal. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a cost for us, so everybody need to kind of
It has to be
share.
part of the reimbursement meal via USDA guidelines. So it's one price for that meal that fits the USDA guidelines for that meal.
And the last time I was at the elementary school, there was a bin for kids to put food in that they didn't want that was still packaged and whole, that they could share with their peers. So if there's an extra thirsty kid who wants lots of milk that day, they're able to put it in the bin if they don't want it, and then the one who wants extra milk can go grab that. And that still exists according to the nods. So it's not just being poured out, is what I'm
Okay,
saying. There's
yeah.
an option for it to be shared.
Okay, that's great. We don't waste those. And okay, thank you, because we buy them, right? So
Yep.
thanks.
Okay, super. Any other comment on the meal price? Okay, let's go ahead and start the buttons. Wonderful. All right, and that motion passes. Okay. The next item is the copier lease and buyout, and that's back to you.
Yeah. The district currently has a number of different types of copiers under varying lease agreements and service contracts that amount to approximately $7,000 per month. Buildings have started to indicate issues with current equipment and service responsiveness. Our goal is to move to one lease and maintenance contract for the whole district to establish consistency and less confusion. We are recommending the lease of copiers through Toshiba through the State Quantity Purchase Agreement, or the QPA. The state QPA awards various contracts for government goods through competitive bidding as outlined in state code. All government entities are able to take advantage of this pricing. Toshiba was awarded the QPA through contract 5883. Toshiba will also be buying out any current leases the district has remaining. The monthly lease after all of this amounts to $3,819.17 per month. The service agreement through Toshiba will also be billed at a per-page amount of .0028 for a monochrome copy and .029 for color copies without any minimum monthly service charges. The agreement includes all maintenance, repair, toner, and other supplies, as well as the addition of paper cut with card readers, which offers the ability for Follow You printing throughout the district with employee badges. The new lease and service agreement through Toshiba is expected to save the corporation approximately $2,400 per month compared to current expenditures. The term of the lease is 60 months with a dollar buyout option, so we will own them at the end of the 60 months. The agreement has been legally reviewed by Ms. Billingsley. Please approve the recommendation as submitted.
Okay.
That was long-winded, sorry.
That's all right. Recommendation, David seconds.
Yeah, I appreciate Sean's response regarding the copy paper saving suggestion. And so I wonder how, it kind of relates to this, but not closely. I wonder how we process that in the future, because I feel that if we kind of consciously save paper, we probably can save a lot, given, for many of those documents, we may make many copies, but if we digitalize them, and we can save a lot that way. So I wonder, moving forward, how we process that saving initiative paper saving initiative.
In our endeavor to save funds across the district, this is one step that Mr. Hamilton and I have been talking about for the past couple of years. And so as you can see, we're going to be saving about $25,000 a year with this. They actually estimated high on the estimation for the number or what we will be paying for the service contract on a per-click basis. We will get data on a monthly basis to look at our usage rates over time. And this is just something that, we need to make sure that this is still an important resource for our teachers. So that's something we need to keep in mind. But those are conversations that we can have going forward. And Mr. Hamilton and I have already been talking about ways that we can also continue to save money going forward.
So the key is that data can engage dialogue, which is something that I think the point you were getting to in our interaction. But the second point is that our teachers work daily very hard to ensure that they have the necessary materials to educate our students to the highest level. So engagement in that dialogue, if we look at the data to guide conversations, would be very important, that all stakeholders have input so that our teachers have the necessary resources. But it's certainly a great piece of, or a great topic to discuss with data that can guide that dialogue.
Thank you.
Super. Anything else? All right, I'll go ahead and start the vote to approve the copier lease and buyout. All righty, that passes as well. Close. Okay. Super. The next item is the ad hoc policy committee report, which we did briefly discuss during our work session, but Rachel, please go ahead and.
So the policy committee met. I have no idea. My device is not liking me tonight. Okay, so we met on April 27th in our new configuration. So the ad hoc policy committee members are Lawrence and David and myself. We met also with the central office team. We picked up, and I recapped that in our work session, what we believe the process will be, but just for the benefit of those here, we are on step 4 of that order of operation, where the policy committee chair is presenting the work of the policy committee as it appears in our notes to the full board at the work session or regular meeting as scheduled. And so tonight we bring you 4 policies for a first reading. One of the requests of the policy committee is that we consider all policies prior to this meeting, regardless of where they are in the process, back to the first reading status, so that we can kind of start new with those policies. So with that being said, we are requesting, I'm trying to skip through the content here, but we are requesting that the board chair release to us all unreviewed B and C policies. So that is everything that CCHA has provided us for the B and C framework. We are most of the way through A, not completely. We have quite a lot of B, and I don't believe that we've touched much on C at all. Additionally, I'll add on, and I'm speaking a little bit out of turn because I haven't consulted David and Lawrence on this, but we do know that, as we heard in the ISBA regional meeting, that there has been some new laws passed that are going to directly impact policies. And so as soon as we receive information on those new laws from Dr. Greiner and from CCHA, we would propose to prioritize those over others that are in the queue. Based on nods, that feels okay to everybody. So
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay.
Do we need to vote about me
we
doing
really,
that?
no, it's just at your discretion. You
Okay.
can just decide. Yeah.
There you go.
That's what we're asking for. We will continue to provide it organized in this format, and I would encourage all members to continue to review this working document. It's shared with everyone for everyone to see. And please, it is incumbent upon all members to ask if they have questions for clarification, or if they need additional information or see an error that we've made. It would be very helpful if that feedback could be given.
Great.
And
How
so-
would you like to receive that feedback?
Well, it should be emailed out to the full board, as all of our communication is supposed to be.
Great.
As I understand it, all of our communication is supposed to be. Yeah. Again, as I outlined pre-meeting, though, that doesn't mean we're going to be changing the policy. It means that that will guide the structure of the subsidiary votes that we make through the course of the policy discussion.
Okay, excellent. And I would like to clarify for the community that if you go to wl.k12.in.us/board /meetings-info and scroll to the bottom, all the board documents are down here, and you can find the policies that I'm about to first reading. Daisha?
Can I ask a quick question about the committee? So there were two policies that aren't listed on the agenda, and I just wondered if you'd share publicly the status of those, C200 anti-bullying and G450 about naming rights.
Yes, I'm happy to do so. So of the policies that we currently have released to us, we took a pause on, just a minute, G450, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, G450. We had kind of some questions on, and are waiting for legal counsel and input on that one. And that's not right. Yeah, it is. Second guessing, this is quite a long document at this point.
You wrote in here.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm reading my own words. And the second one that we paused on was
C200.
C200.
Anti-bullying.
And so there was a new law passed specifically on this effective 7/1/25. So we recognize we're going to get updated legal counsel. And so we paused on that one for the sake of some efficiency.
Very sensible. Anything else? Okay.
Yes,
Lauren.
as Rachel said, so if the whole board member, other board member, if you have any suggestions, any comments regarding these four policies, you can, send to the whole board. So maybe next time policy committees can discuss. And the next meeting will be the second reading, my understanding. So if you have any amendment, you can send written email sent to Amy, because she need to read that. I don't want her feel
To everyone.
yeah, to everybody, and also CC to Amy. So when she run the meetings, she have something printed out before her, so she can less anxious. I don't
Right,
want you-
appreciate it, yeah.
Yeah. So just make her life easier. So
I'm just going to wing it like I always do. No.
yes, that's all. Thank you.
Great. And if any member of the community goes to the website and reads these policies and has suggestions they would like to be considered, they can also email the entire board at how is that? I'm sorry, I didn't prepare. School board members at wl.k12.in.us. So with that, the first policy for first reading is A125, and that concerns nepotism, conflict of interests, gifts, and use of corporation resources. The second one is policy C475, school-sponsored publications and productions. Number H200, relations with special interest groups. And H250, school library material removal request procedure. Rachel.
If I could please on on proposed policy A125 regarding nepotism, conflict of interest, gifts.
Sure.
In discussion, and you can see there are some questions, but I want to clarify for our members, there is, as part of this policy, disclosure form that board members are asked to sign. Typically, that would happen at the annual organizational meeting, but we, as a policy committee, would like to recommend that that disclosure form be signed at the time of the passing of this policy initially, so it'd be a mid-year, and then going forward, it would be signed at the annual organizational meeting. Also, it's been a conversation among the board at previous meetings that we recognize that some of our families do have a preference for cash or gift card gifts to teachers, and this policy would change that structure potentially. And so we have asked legal to help us understand what options could be to make that as least restrictive. We know that our teachers do not, and we don't want to put any teacher in a difficult position. It is standard throughout the state that cash and gift cards would not be given. And so we've kind of been an exception to that. And this part of that policy is something that I believe that we as a board and as our community would have interest in and would want to kind of look at closely.
Okay. And specifically not microwave ovens, according to.
Yes, right. So the previous Neola policy did include an exclusion from us receiving any microwave ovens from anyone in the community at any point in time. So we have removed that particular item as well with this
I'd
policy.
say that twice. That's really why we all ran, was for the sweet microwave ovens. Okay, is there anything you'd like to share about 475?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, take your time. I know it's a lot.
My order in this document does not match the order on the agenda, so I'm just wiggling around a little bit.
While we're waiting on that, can I also ask, who do we submit revisions to?
The whole board.
Yep.
The whole board, so the whole board knows, but the policy committee will receive those and discuss those specifically. And then it's all in this shared document, what we observe, so.
Okay. And also maybe put in the subject line, which one, just for sanity's sake.
That would be very helpful.
Okay.
Yes, so we don't miss any. That would be very helpful. C475 is school-sponsored publications and productions. We went back and forth on language that was in our previous policy and tried to align that. And I think, I know that we asked legal counsel for that and that feedback has been provided. And so I would just ask for people to kind of consider what unacceptable content would mean to them as they review this. And be prepared to kind of have that conversation about the definition of unacceptable.
Okay.
And how we might process that.
I promise not to make any dumb jokes about cats. Moving on.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And then finally, we're going to move on to H200. And I would invite any, Lawrence or David, if I'm not presenting any of this, please let me know. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to correct. H200, we felt this one was pretty much actually ready to go. For review and consideration. It's a little bit unclear of the connection to 9140 that's listed in the crosswalk document, and we did get clarification from legal on that.
Okay.
And then finally on policy H250, school library material removal request. This is a legal requirement, and it is obviously this one has been of great concern to our community. So there are a list of 4 questions and answers, and we specifically requested that these questions and answers from legal be included with the policy document because we feel members of the community will also have those same questions. And I think that is all that I have.
Okay. Lawrence or David, anything to add? Lawrence?
Yeah, I don't have too much, but just only for this library things. When I come back after meeting, I just think about that. Probably we need to maybe add one steps. Say basically, right now we have a policy require before you file this remove request forms, you talk to the media librarian or media staff members. I think probably we need another person, basically the building principals. So you talk to the librarian and also you talk to the principals before, we want this issue settled within the building before they escalate. If you have the form, we have to create committees, which are people reading the whole books or whatever the materials. And then that's take a lot of time and a lot of effort. So I think if we can handle that within the building, that's maybe better. So that's just some thought. I think maybe we can add that into this policy. I think it's on the,
Okay.
it's on the, in the middle of the page, they saying, say the requester should first discuss the item of concern with the school librarian. So maybe we can add the librarian and the principal, something like that. So does that make sense?
The principal's in there?
Yes.
Principal in there?
Currently, the principal's in there. Yes.
The building level administrator, it's on the next page.
Oh, it's on the next page? Oh, okay. If that's already, that's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
don't never mind. So I just I think probably they are the
Great.
building, yeah.
Okay, and if you look at it at home and have any other suggestions, just email everybody and we'll
That's right. Yeah, that's what
take
I'm
those.
thinking.
Okay. David, did you have anything? No? Okay, super. All right, and again, if anyone in the community has any feedback regarding those policies, please email the entire board, and you can find them on the website. And if anyone has any trouble with that, feel free to email me, and I will help. Okay, it appears as though we are to item number 6, which is superintendent's report. No, we are not.
Just so that we're all clear on process from here.
Okay,
We're asking everybody to send any feedback or revisions. But I think that from the board, it might be good to be a little bit more specific on feedback, on the timeline. So because as we have about a month till the next meeting, and it would be ideal not to get the responses like June 3rd. So can we request that anybody on the board that has any recommended edits to any of these, get it in within 2 weeks? Is
I
that
think
too
that's
much to ask
reasonable.
anybody?
no, I think that's
It is
very
what-
reasonable.
When are we, I don't remember when we're
1 week
scheduled.
before the meeting.
When are we scheduled to meet again? It's on my calendar.
First.
Pardon me?
Yeah,
May 21st?
Committee meeting 21st.
21st,
If
yes.
possible
So,
for board members to give us by the 21st, David.
or by the 20th.
That's
By
only
the 20th.
Yeah.
Okay.
1 week.
But we can all read 4 pages, I think. I mean,
I'm going to send
Thank
out
you,
a
everybody.
reminder. That's very
And then
wise.
we'll discuss at our policy board meeting and our committee meeting, and then get that back out to everybody else as quickly as possible so they can see our recommendations. And then we'll vote on the final second reading at the next meeting,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Right. Okay, wonderful. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, you're up.
All right, Last week, several of the central office staff members attended the Indiana Association of School Business Officials annual meeting. There were many opportunities for professional development. Similar to the board's recent Indiana School Board Association meeting, or ISBA, we also received updates related to the legislative changes. We're working with legal counsel as well as the Indiana Department of Education to fully understand the implementation of the new laws and how that will look. We know that funding, here are some things that we know. Funding is going to be tight over the next 2 years, given the limited increases to school funding, but also the impact of property tax relief, and that goes multiple years. And interestingly, it was described to me as each district being like a snowflake. No one district is alike. So truly, as this implementation occurs and we see actual dollars listed, that's how we'll begin to understand this. So it will be important for boards and school administrators to tell their story, quote unquote, so that it's understood what this is looking like per school corporation as it unfolds. It'll take several months or years for us to fully understand the impact of property tax relief on us because of what I just described. Also, SEA 366 has language related to transfers, which may impact our ability to accept transfers from TSC through the better accommodated standard. We, along with TSC, are reviewing with our legal counsels. And there's a possibility that we may need to open transfers, be an open school, and continue to consider limits based on class size like we do now, but possibly become an open district. And if we do that, that's going to require that the board update policy pertaining to transfers. And so we're going to certainly keep you updated on that so that we can make quick and informed decisions as we learn more. There is also a bill, HEA 1002, that eliminates the requirement for teachers to be designated as highly effective, improvement, necessary, ineffective with regard to evaluations. So we're going to be studying that and understanding what that can mean for us. And then there's language in HEA 1001 that has led to changes to the Teacher Appreciation Grant. It's resulting in only 20% of teachers able to get this award through different qualifying categories. As we better understand those qualifying categories, we will certainly be bringing that information to the board as we understand how we're going to need to implement that. There'll be guidance from the Indiana Department of Education, but what we do know is it's not issued across the board. It's literally issued to no more than 20% of teachers per year. And then there's language in SEA 255 related to bully reporting changes and communication from what was up to 5-day requirement to the end of the next school day. It doesn't impact us so much in that you as a board had already stated that we would report within 2 days. And so if there's a bully incident this day, then by the end of the next day. And so there's not a big change there, but we are going to be working with legal counsel to understand what that overall policy would look like so that the board will have something to discuss and approve based on what the board determines to be the policy related to West Lafayette Community School Corporation and staying within legal requirements. Again, we are going to continue to update the board as we better understand these required changes, and that'll take time, but there's already work being done to understand those. And of course, the Indiana Department of Education is working now on developing guidance as well. I want to thank Mrs. Austin for representing the board during the awards ceremony, where Mrs. Kronk officially received her IASBO award for State School Business Official of the Year. I might have seen a teardrop of joy based on the board's representation. So thank you all for having a representative there, and thank you, Mrs. Austin, for the drive. A reminder that the last student day is May 21st. We wish our students, staff, and families a safe summer break. I state that at this board meeting because at the next board meeting, they'll be on recess. So we're also preparing for and looking forward to celebrating our seniors during graduation, which is May 23rd at 7 p.m. Board members, you'll recall that we meet in the band room, and you can plan to meet in the band room at 6:30, and we'll do our thing together to celebrate our amazing seniors that have been with us for some time. Mrs. Kronk, would you please report on accounts payable and funds reports?
Of course.
Thank you.
Claims for the period of April 10th through May 2nd total $2,569,633.80, including regular corporation expenses and the Wabash Valley Education Center expenses. Of this amount, $1,623,732 were paid towards wages, salaries, and benefits. I provided you the final fund report for March 2025 in your board packets. Total cash on hand in all funds was $30,061,725. The education fund had a cash balance of $7,921,754. A preliminary fund report for April has also been included, but we have not yet finished entering receipts and reconciling for that month. And the cash flow, including the month of March, showing the flow of revenue and expenses during that month for the Education Referendum and Operations Fund is also included.
I heard Mr. Lau say before you do that, so that will conclude the report. So if you would like to say something.
I did not intend to cut off Ms. Kronk, but no, I just had a specific question about the changes to bullying law. Does the state actually keep track of bullying incidents? They do? Okay.
There's a database.
Okay.
Oh, you mean tracking at the state level as, yes, at the end of each year, we're reporting that. The school districts are reporting that.
Okay. Because one of the things that I know had been talked about before is they typically define bullying as something that happens consistently. And if we're shortening the reporting period, you think that's going to result in an increase in reported bullying because we're reporting things after only just a day or two?
So the state collects the actual, so when you're reporting it, you're reporting that there's been a bully accusation. And so, and then you've got so many days to report out on what you found in the investigation. And what you find in the investigation, you find that there was bullying. That bullying is reported to the state.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Rachel.
Related to legislation, Dr. Reiner, there was a decrease just under 1% of funding for special education next year. There was an addition of a staffing requirement, I believe, for a behavioral intervention. I believe we already have that on staff. I just wanted to confirm that with you.
You are correct that we do.
Okay. And so I'm just kind of curious how you're planning to manage the shortfall in special education funding.
So it'll be a funding challenge across the board, and we'll be looking at how we adequately fund our students as we understand what we're facing.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start with you, A, for board reports, please.
I attended the class meeting on April 15th, and I learned that so typically for K-12 students, and the school provide a special education service, right? But from that meeting, I learned for the kids who actually are in the preschool, and they can, if they need a special education service, they can also contact GLASS to receive free special education service. To know more about it, they can just call their office to learn about it. And I hope those preschools notify families about this information as well. And I'm not sure what other ways the family can know that they can get a free special education services while GLASS. And another thing is given that many special education educators feel a lot of uncertainty regarding their future job because of this change, GLASS change. And I think one option people are talking about is the joint appointment. For example, the GLASS can collaborate with different school districts for those new employment, because many people will be worried that, let's say, they are hired by GLASS, but later GLASS will be dissolved, then they don't know where they will go later. So I don't think there's a final decision on that, but that's certainly one possible solution is to have joint employment. So later they know after GLASS is dissolved, they can go, let's say, west side to continue their job. Something. So, yeah, I from multiple meetings, I learned many special education educators are worried about their job security after the change. So,
Okay, thank you. Rachel? Don't forget your mic.
Just as a reminder from the ISBA that there are committee positions open for Region 4. Those include the awards committee, the nomination committee, and perhaps most notably the legislative committee. If we have an interest in participating with the intentions of the ISBA and their lobbying, this is your opportunity to have a voice in that. And it's important to do that. I am on the board and not able to serve in that role, so that leaves it down to the 6 of you. But I would encourage you, if you're at all willing, to consider applying for that position. And then from the West Lafayette Schools Education Foundation, very focused on scholarships, seniors, and milestones. Scholarship awards letters have been mailed to student recipients. There were 66 seniors who applied. 38 students were selected for 42 awards, totaling $51,000. They will be recognized at the reception on Thursday, May 22nd. That is the night before graduation. And many of the donors will be present at that time as well, so it's a good opportunity to meet them and thank them for their gift to our students and our schools. There was one new scholarship added this year, bringing the total number of scholarships to 27. The newest scholarship is the West Lafayette Youth Baseball and Softball Scholarship. The foundation is honored to partner with the elementary and high school students. They launched the new Pass the Pride event. If you have not yet seen the video, I recommend that you watch it. But this year's graduating seniors passed on their Red Devil Pride, as I understand, in the form of friendship bracelets to this year's current kindergartners. And so that's on the West Lafayette Schools Ed Foundation YouTube channel. I think that that is it
Thank
for the
you.
foundation.
Okay, David?
Thank you for the reminder about that. It was a really light meeting at Parks and Rec, but this will be the last time that I'm going to be reminding everybody about the grand opening of Case and Family Park, because it opens a week from Thursday. The grand opening event is at 10 a.m. I pulled up the website just so that I could make sure to share all the cool details with everybody. Just a reminder, there's a recreational pond that has, it's 4.2 acres for fishing, kayaking, all kinds of fun stuff like that. There are nature-themed there are 5 different playgrounds: the coneflower corner, the bird's nest, the treetop tower, and a couple more that they don't list here. There's also the historic Morris Schoolhouse that was restored and can be outdoor classroom and interactive learning space. The schedule, everything starts around 10 o'clock. There'll be food trucks and refreshments, more schoolhouse tours. 10:30, there'll be the ribbon cutting event. Then in the afternoon, there'll be at 2 to 4, we'll be kayaking on the pond. 2:30 to 4:30, some story time and crafts. 4 to 6, there'll be a fishing derby. And then 5:30 to 6:30, there will be outdoor yoga. So lots of fun. It's the day after school gets out, so hopefully we'll have lots of kids, lots of families, lots of community members. It should be a really wonderful event. So I hope to see everybody there.
Great. Thank you. Daisha?
For the Public Schools Foundation, it's exciting to announce that we had another one of our intermediate school teachers awarded the spring grant recipient. So Erin Pearson from the intermediate school with her grant project titled Stop Motion Animation Storytelling. So the reception is actually tomorrow at 5 o'clock, May 13th at Kappa Wine Bar, and everyone is invited to attend.
Thank you. Lawrence?
Yeah, there's no community councils meeting, so I think they were scheduled for next new school year. So I don't have anything to report. But one thing I want to say, I really appreciate everybody. So we finished this meeting 7:08. So it's really appreciate. I'm proud of everybody. So we work together, especially Amy. Thank you for your leadership. Our meeting called these working sessions, so we can work together for these things before the official meeting. And the whole meeting run well organized, so I really appreciate that. So I'm also proud of our whole board. We just move on the right direction. Thank
I
you,
may still talk for 2 hours. You don't know.
But thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah, and you went and said that, but I still got to give my report. It's going to take a minute.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, how legislative is.
See, thankfully, the Indiana legislative session is over. There is a lot to cover. If I got any of this wrong, please feel free to correct me, but there's a lot to consider. So the state is creating a panel to explore ways of lowering ABA therapy costs. State-run audits claim to have found improper payments over the years, and apparently Indiana is one of the states that has the highest average charge for ABA therapy via Medicaid payments. So that will develop later on in the fall, and then the committee will make recommendations after that. And instead of funding universal pre-K or making a centralized childcare program, there are several different bills that all make piecemeal changes to early childhood education. Some people say that Indiana is an early childhood education desert, which makes our local pre-K program all the more important. The budget and the property tax relief kind of go hand in hand. So there's going to be a $2 billion revenue shortfall projection over the next 2 years, which means cuts. And some of the cuts are public colleges are being cut by 5%. Public health funding is being cut by 60%. And state funding for trail maintenance, public broadcasting, and Dolly Parton's Imagination Library was cut entirely. although the governor's wife is trying to raise private funds to restart the Imagination Library. So hooray for that. The property tax relief will amount to up to $300 per year for personal property tax holders. However, that may be offset by new taxing authority that was given to local municipalities. And they will likely take that power and increase taxes or create new ones to cover the property tax shortfall. So the state giveth and then taketh away more. State K through 12 education did receive a 2% increase, but again, in the same vein, the state giveth and then taketh away more. Income limits on school voucher programs have been completely eliminated. So there is no maximum income level for school vouchers at this point. Teacher minimum salary is now, or will be, $45,000, and at least 65% of tuition support funds from the state have to be spent on teacher pay. That's an increase of 62%. And that would normally be a good thing. And I would say, on the face of it, it is. But combine that with the changes to the Teacher Excellence Grants that Dr. Greiner was just talking about, and it actually takes away a little bit of local control for teacher compensation. Indiana now has partisan school board elections, but thankfully that bill was watered down a tiny bit. So you don't have to declare a party. You don't even have to declare that you're independent. You could declare nothing at all, according to the legislation that actually passed. And if you do declare, you're not going to be subject to a primary process. There will be some new cybersecurity provisions provided by the state that public bodies and school corporations will have to adopt. I assume that they're going to be minimum standards so that school corporations and other public bodies will be able to make positive changes to them, but that's going to need some extra, how do I put this, some extra administrative work, particularly on the part of this body and the IT staff. Schools are now automatically required to enroll qualified middle school students into advanced math courses unless a parent objects. I don't know if we have a process for that yet, but we will have to come up with one soon. And then in my personal / professional opinion, Senate Bill 289 is a complete mess. It attempts to eliminate DEI, but it also retains several programs that are in fact DEI. But what makes it worse is that people can bring civil suits under the law, but only for actual damages, court costs, and injunctive relief. Now, if you read the rest of the law where they attempt to define new standards for what discrimination means, basically anyone that feels bad about something can attempt to bring a civil suit. And even if they don't win, you still have court time, court costs, attorney fees. So we'll have to be mindful of that going forward.
Okay, you don't get to go last anymore.
Well, how about this? The thing I did forget to say is I want to offer my congratulations and my apologies to all the graduating students. I'm not going to be in the country during graduation, but otherwise I would be there cheering you on from wherever the students want to place us.
Okay, thanks.
George, I have a quick question regarding that. You talk about the 300 up to 300 property deductions, and you say the municipal maybe have some other ways to charge tax levy the property owner or something like that.
If my reading of the reporting and the law are correct, it was a combination. So you have the budget and the property tax law that both passed. The property tax relief, as they call it, will give individual landowners, property owners, up to $300 in relief per tax year. But at the same time, local bodies that don't normally charge taxes or are able to charge limited amounts of taxes, like municipalities, have been given the authority to create new taxes. So, for example, when you file your taxes at the end of the year, you normally have federal income tax, state income tax, and then some municipalities have already been granted the authority to charge certain taxes.
Like accounting.
I think you're talking about the local income tax.
Yeah, so there may be increases in local income taxes, and some places that don't have local income taxes may start to, right.
And schools would not apply to that. And so for that reason, we would not benefit from that. Correct.
So we don't have authority to charge the income tax.
Correct.
We still have our normal referendum levy powers, but we don't have the power to add a school funding income tax, yeah.
But my understanding,
I was going to add on to that because George said the magical words of we have still a referendum ability, but the state did make pursuing a referendum more complex this year. They have changed it so that they've changed the wording because they like to do that every session, I believe, to make it a little bit more difficult. But the other thing that they've done is changed it so that you can only have a referendum vote in the fall cycle, so in a November election every 2 years, general election only. So there's no more May votes. They are just doing that in November now. So that is something we'll need to consider. I should say that's something this board will need to consider when we come up to the next referendum.
You'll hear, speaking of the next referendum, you'll hear Mrs. Cronk and Mr. Reuter talking about this too, but we'll have to change our thinking even in referendum and what that looks like with regard to thinking a wider range, because tax rates change, but the dollar amount of a referendum doesn't. And so when you think about property income for property taxes to the school funds, we'll have to think differently with regard to the referendum too, and thinking up to a certain rate, but really keeping our amount the same because, and this is something that we'll watch and understand, if AV doesn't go up the way that we would hope it would with these new tax relief initiatives, the referendum fund is the one fund that could go down, and that will be very serious for us. So we'll have to watch that. We're okay for next year, but we'll have to hope that the AV balances that out. And as we think about our next referendum into the future, we're going to have to think about how these new changes to property taxes impact our referendum fund and how we'll run that in the future.
Okay, go ahead, Lawrence.
yeah, just one more question. You talk about the maths automatically enrollment. Do you have the bill numbers or something? I can double check
Yeah.
Go ahead. You can look at that.
Yeah, you can give me that later. Yeah,
It's House Bill 1634.
There you go.
16.
So speaking of the ISBA committees, I was on the legislative one, and it's a really rewarding experience, and I learned a lot from it. You're not choosing your own adventure and just walking in and saying, I would like to talk about this year. You know, they have the previous year platform, and they guide you through the process, and it's a table full of people. It's very interesting. So I would encourage people who aren't me to do that, because I wrote up my whole application and I thought, I don't have time. Okay, so the RDC purchased a bunch of equipment for the park, and it was approved, and there are lighting projects that are open for bids, and the fire department's getting some new safety equipment. And unfortunately, I had to miss board teacher discussion, but I understand that everybody is looking forward to summer and things are proceeding with board teacher discussion. There was not a lot to report from that, correct?
Correct.
Correct. So with that, I will adjourn at a record-setting 7:19. Our next meeting is June 9th at 5 p.m. And oh, yeah, I got to do that. Well, I'm almost there. We got the work session will be at 5 if needed. The regular board meeting will be June 9th at 6. The upcoming dates of interest are May 21st for school year concluding, May 22nd for Snowy Cap Day number 3, which we won't need, and 23rd, and then graduation is also the 23rd. Now I need a motion. Rachel and Dave.
I can second.
Okay, all those in favor, we got to push buttons. Here we go. There, all right. Thank you very much, everyone. This was a great meeting.